What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Fandom Nation, talking all things Halloween tonight. Maybe not all things Halloween, but definitely there's been, I don't want to call them rumblings, but we're going to talk about someone else's piece of content and as it pertains to the Halloween TV series and shed some light on that. Fear Street Prom Queen, Daredevil Born Again, episode 3 is in the books. Episode 4 launching in about 12 minutes' time. Some WWE 2K25 thoughts, and some good news for Star Wars gaming. And God knows we need it. Without further ado, though, one of my co-hosts here, Randy, what's going on, buddy?
Kind of brutal day. I was over peopling because some of the people I work with, well, not work, just it just wasn't there today. It was one of those where I was just like, okay, I gotta get out of work. I gotta get home. I need something, and this is that something that's going to make my day infinitely better. How are things going for you?
I'm not gonna lie, I have a throbbing headache. so I've been looking forward to this show. I've been looking forward to the watch party afterwards. So if you're joining us now, as soon as this episode's over, we will be doing a watch party to Andor season 1, episode 6. That really looking forward to. But yeah, I just kind of wish the headache wasn't here. It was all good about an hour ago, and then you know how headaches work. They just sort of come up and bite you in the ass. And speaking of asses and biting, the man behind Bros Before Pros, Johnny V. What's going on, buddy?
Nothing. I got nothing. Um, nah, it's been good. You know, if you've been following us over on the Twitch, we had a couple great streams. Went over 6 hours on Saturday night. You know, so it's been a lot of fun. You know, I've been enjoying it. You know, WWE we'll talk about later. MLB's been good so far this year. It's you know, it's been a good week. It's been a good week.
I don't know how you have so much damn hard drive room. Like, just clearing room for wrestling was like grinding teeth.
Play games, remove games.
Yeah, well, kids. So it doesn't sit well with them.
I don't have that.
Um, you just wait. You'll be cursed with triplets one day, and it'll be because of this conversation. Um, the death glare.
I'll tell you what. I'll keep this clip so that should that come to pass, the mother will kill you, and I don't have to.
All right. So this one was kind of under the radar and remains under the radar, and there could be good reason for that. Um, got word about a piece of content another channel did. I think this might have been on Friday, and it was pertaining to the Halloween TV series. And so one of the people that we use as a source here at the channel said, "Be warned, the information is old but accurate." Okay, so I listened to the video, and it was the YouTube channel was I Like Scary. And in a nutshell, Hellwig, the head of Miramax, was questioned some time ago, last year. This would have been about an update on the Halloween TV series, and he said that it's and this is very similar to the press release that was put out too. He said that it's about going back to the essence of the original film and focusing on characters in that film that maybe don't necessarily get the attention as some of the other characters do. And then he followed that up with, but also characters from more, I don't think he said more recent, but the implication was other characters than just the original film. which for me is a little confusing because you can probably get away with 1 and 2, right? Halloween 1, Halloween 2, and have those characters still exist in the same universe, storyline, whatever. But the second you start sprinkling in like 4 or 5, I know Danielle Harris's name's got some play, and rightfully so. Um, but like, unless you're combining storylines together from various different movies, I don't really see how this works, fellas. And this is again is right from Hellwig's mouth. If you watch the video, it comes off as if these comments were just made. They were not just made. They were made about a year ago or so. But again, the big takeaway here is what we had already heard in the press release, that it would focus on characters from the original movie and bring it back to the essence of that movie, but also, could focus on characters from other iterations of Halloween movies that aren't the recent ones. And I really do feel the implication there is when you make a statement like that, I don't necessarily blame people for running with the, okay, well, here's a Danielle Harris connection. This could be a thing. I just don't know, like, as big of a Halloween fan as I am, how inside baseball are you going to have to get to combine multiple storylines together here for a new TV series? Not saying that that's still happening. That's the important takeaway here is this information is like a year old. And the fact that everything is sort of, slowed to a standstill, um, I don't know how much validity I would put on this information being accurate anymore. But the fact that it's right from the horse's mouth, to me, fellas, seems to indicate that they were going for something lofty. Johnny?
Yeah. I mean, it's again, I say this. I sound like a broken record when I say it, but it's all going to come down to execution. You know, I don't mind shooting for the stars, so long as you realize that there's a good chance you're going to miss and crash land on Earth, and you need to be ready for that. Um, I, it's horror is sort of fun in that you don't necessarily need like a unified theory of horror. You can pick and choose elements and make it work in your universe as long as you know work to explain away any inconsistencies within your universe. And I don't know. I mean, it's hard for me to sit here and try and figure out how they combine different timelines in Halloween to make them make sense. We have what 3, 4 distinct timelines at present in the Halloween universe, not including Season of the Witch. I'm just saying, strictly in the Myers, we have 4
Great
different.
movie, by the way.
Oh,
Great
for
movie.
sure.
All you haters out there, don't bash it. H3 is one of the best Halloween flicks.
Which tells you that maybe they should have done what John planned in the first place and done an anthology series. But I digress.
Who would think he knows what he's talking about, right?
Yeah, maybe, just maybe. But it's it's all about how you interweave the stories, because obviously some of the elements of individual timelines don't jive with elements of other timelines. So how and where do you mishmash and put them together is going to be interesting. From a storytelling perspective, it definitely provides a lot of opportunity, which is something I think Halloween needs. Is the ability and the want and the actuality of telling sort of different friends, different stories, and making them make sense and making them work and being original with them and being good with them. That's the important thing. So I don't know. It's an interesting theory, And I, like I've said, I'm intrigued by the possibility of seeing what elements are poached and picked and changed and added and done. And, you know, I'm intrigued by the series. I'm intrigued by the ideas. It's all going to come down to the execution and, getting everyone on board and finding the right people to tell the right stories without going off the rails is a monumental task that I just don't have. I have very little faith in very few people to pull it off. And I don't know if they can and or have the ability to pull it together in a way that satisfies me.
Yeah, well, I mean, if they go that route, they're taking on a ton of expectations and different nostalgia pieces that people are going to want to see the second that they go that route, which is why I think it's a dangerous route to go with this. Again, whether it's current, whether it's not current anymore, I do think that's one of the problems that this franchise gets into is um, we're talking about a story concept and an idea that is put out there to develop further into a series. So that means when you have a creative come on board, the creative is not coming in with a blank canvas. And I'm not saying that's the case on a lot of projects anyway, but specifically with Halloween, they always seem to love to have the direction of the story in place before you actually go and get the director, or even the writer for that matter. So it's always piggybacking off of a already existing idea. Um, and I don't know about you, Johnny, but for me, I think that like doing things that way is is close to creatively bankrupt as it gets, because you should be willing to allow people to come in and pitch their new take on the next generation of Halloween movies or TV series. A lot of people don't want to come in and continue your idea. And this is one of the reasons when it comes to Halloween, we just get way too many chefs in the kitchen.
Yeah, I mean that's the genuine risk, right? Is more and more times you add people to those types of positions, and the more and more you get at the top of the pyramid, it's just it becomes lopsided, and it can't float when it becomes too top heavy. You're trying to balance. You're trying to balance spinning plates, and the more people trying to balance the same spinning plate, you're gonna drop it because you can't. It just it, you think more people makes lighter work, but in something like this, it doesn't. You need someone with a vision, and you need people who understand that vision and who are working towards that vision. You need a unified direction. And sometimes you find groups that can do that. Benioff and Weiss, Lindelof and Hughes. There are lots of groups of producers who can work together to make great work. Lucas and Spielberg. Like there are people you can put together to get that and make it successful. There are just as many groups who you put together who try to do that, and you just end up with too many cooks in the kitchen when you're not working towards one direction and one goal. And I think that's kind of what we're setting up for here. A lot of people want their vision, and without somebody sitting there to say, this is the direction, this is where we're going, get on board or get off the boat, it's you're bound for mutiny, and that leads to crap. You know?
Randy, give us your thoughts on this, man. The idea of trying to fuse together timelines to make one bigger story with I would assume would be like the survivors of Michael Myers is where they'd be going with that. But also, do you think they're creatively strapping themselves down when you come in and make the story you want to make?
So this feels like that episode of South Park where they showed how Family Guy came up with their ideas for their episodes. That's what this feels like. Or someone was just sitting there going, "Hey, let's throw some ideas up there and throw darts at them." Halloween, okay. Multiverse, check. Next start, Michael Myers, check. Survivors, check. Okay, there we go. That's what we're gonna go with. The problem with something like this is because everything is, even though they're, the one connection here is Michael Myers, uh, and in some ways, we have Laurie Strode in some of this stuff. It's still very different in so many ways that I don't know how it could work unless you bring in at least a writer to get a treatment. Let's get a writer in here. Let's see how they would pull this all together. And if it works, great. You've come up with something unique to the franchise that that would be very difficult for just about anybody to really do unless you're comic book, anime, something. Just something that it's able to hit on different levels of a multiverse that works because there's already written storylines out there that they can pull from. With horror, this is different. This is a different animal altogether, and I don't understand why they would want to take on that type of beast altogether. This is something that's going to be, like you guys have said, everybody has to be on the same page. There's got to be one driving voice that everybody can get behind and saying, you know what, this is a great idea. We have X, Y, and Z all set up. We know exactly how we're going to do this to bring everything together. And, I mean, hell, you could use Season of the Witch in a way because of some of the things that they did in that. You could actually bring that anthology feel to it to kind of connect the dots if you're really gonna try to create the multiverse, like a multiverse sort of thing here, because that's what this feels like. That's exactly what this feels like. We're talking about bringing characters from different timelines, different movies, and that honestly I don't think would gel well together. But I've been proven wrong before by movies that I thought and in TV series I just thought that weren't going to work, and it was like, holy hell, it works. It's not impossible, regardless of how improbable this is. Can it work? Maybe. Will it work? Chances are no. I would rather go with the idea we've kicked around so many times of just having that group of survivors and building on those characters that have survived Michael Myers. But other than that, it's just, nah, I don't like it. And I get it that it's, was a real possibility a year ago, but that's a year ago. I want to know what's going on now. I want to know if they even have even a half-brained idea beyond what they're pitching a year ago. And if they can't figure something out, then focus on a movie. Don't worry about the TV series, because if you can't figure something out by now, maybe someone has an idea for a movie. That's, you've got, I mean, especially with uh, the big one coming up in 3 years, you might as well start focusing on that, getting that writing done, having a solid script, getting people in place for, at this point, you might as well just focus on that. Forget the TV series for now.
Yeah, you know, I think it's heavily underestimated how, I don't want to say like easy as if like, you could do it and you sleepwalk into it, but you could do a just standalone Michael Myers Halloween movie with, players A, B, and C as the protagonists in it, and not have it set in any given set timeline, just a standalone Michael movie of Michael doing Michael things, and it would still make its money back at the box office. Now, would it be this? Obviously, you'd want to shoot it for as little as possible, um, but you know, with no JLC attached, with no big Universal attachment, um, pending on if Carpenter comes back for the score. There might be some nostalgia you can sell people on, but like, I just feel like the way easier thing to do here is to turn their attention towards a movie if this series idea isn't working.
I mean, why not? If you're worried about, the name brand and getting it out there, keeping it on, in people's minds, then yeah, movie's the way to go. Especially when you have time to hype up the fact that it's 50. I mean, that's crazy. You know what I mean? That's the fact that it's going to be that old is wild. And still kicking, because not many franchises get to be 50 years old and still putting out content, and this is a perfect opportunity to just get the hype machine going. At this point, I'm surprised they haven't done the found footage film crap yet with Michael Myers. I mean, I'm surprised. I figured that would have already happened, but
I mean, Halloween Resurrection exists.
but that's more for technically reality TV. I'm talking about like Blair Witch type thing, not reality TV crap. But I see your point. I do see your point. But still, it's just, I don't know. I think it's time to shit or get off the pot at this point when it comes to the TV series. Either you got something and you're ready to put it into production, or it's time to just focus on 50 and go with that.
Makes sense to me. Let us know down in the comment section below if you guys think they should pivot to a movie or still keep plugging away at a TV series. Sorry, you might hear my little girl in the background. The wife's having a hard time with her. Let's move on to Fear Street Prom Queen, new movie that is coming out in May, I believe it is. Where's our excitement level for this? I got to tell you guys, mine's over the moon. I loved the first three they did. Enjoyed them quite a bit. Now this is a one-off, and then they have another trilogy in the works. I don't know what the other trilogy is about, but for me, they did good enough with that first set of movies that the fact that I can watch this on a Friday when it comes out and really enjoy it without having to pay an egregious amount of money to go see it in movie theaters. I'm excited. Johnny, where are you with this? And maybe remind the audience what you thought of the trilogy.
Oh, that would still require me having seen it. Still haven't. So I don't really, I don't have a horse in this race. I'm not excited because I didn't, I never got around to watching the original trilogy, so I don't have any level of excitement for this because it's not honestly on my radar at all.
Randy?
So I'm actually pretty excited for it just because I did enjoy the first trilogy. I thought it was really well done, cohesive. I liked the fact that they tied everything all together, and it felt like a complete story from from beginning to end. And with this, other than keeping the town name from what I saw from the trailer, I really kind of hope, and I know I mentioned this in the chat earlier, I really hope they kind of give us some Easter eggs to kind of tie it into the original trilogy, because if memory serves me correctly, this is kind of a kind of a tweener movie where they're going to launch a new trilogy after this. If I remember correctly, I could be mistaken or misheard wrong, but I'm kind of hoping that this does connect in some way, and just kind of, but at least with the town, it gives you a nice, like, wow, this town sucks ass. You do not want to live here kind of vibe, because that's really kind of the vibe you get in the first three movies. and this seems like it's going to continue with that, and I'm fine with that as long as it's. I just kind of hope we have like the same level of execution that we got from the original trilogy, because as long as we have that, I have no doubt this is going to be a really fun ride, and I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, well, Johnny, if you haven't seen these movies, maybe don't watch them. We might be able to do like an event later on down the line with the channel. Sorry, my daughter's a menace, guys.
You know what they say about reaping and sowing?
Yep. So we'll go here, and I'll let you guys take over for a few minutes while we try to get her calm. Daredevil, Born Again, Episode 3. How do we feel?
I obviously haven't seen anything from tonight's episode, so
wait, hold up.
Okay.
I got to give you Tommy B's review.
Okay.
Yeah, Tommy, I love you, buddy, but sorry, I'm throwing you under the bus with this one. So Tommy comes to me at the end of the episode, and he's like, "Oh, that was dark." He's like, "They're really on like opposite sides of this fight, aren't they?" And I'm like,
No,
"Who is
Tommy?
Like,
no.
Well, the Punisher and Daredevil.
Oh, Tommy. Okay.
Yeah,
He thinks that was Frank at the end of the episode?
I think he thinks that the cops have been in cahoots with him as well.
Oh, Tommy.
See, Tommy B's still around in spirit, people, and he'll be here physically before you know it.
I mean, obviously, you're supposed to think that. If you don't understand the deeper process of the Punisher, I think you obviously are supposed to assume that's Frank. I do not think there's a snowball's chance in hell that's Frank. Now, obviously, I could very well be wrong. It's not out of the realm of possibilities for Frank to kill someone for that, to exact justice, his brand of justice on a, murderer who got off almost on a sort of technicality. It wouldn't be the first time he's gone after another, superhero vigilante type for doing exactly that, for crossing that line, which is funny considering that's the line he crosses every time he goes out. But that's the duality of the Punisher, And I certainly don't think that under the circumstances he would do that, because if there's one thing you learn about the Punisher is that Frank would be smart enough to see through the testimony of the witness,
Not to
he
mention,
would go through. That's the guy he'd go after. He would go after him, put him at the barrel of a gun, and say, "Tell me the truth. What happened?"
He'd never hide behind a corner to get a point blank, blindsided temple shot either on anyone. That's not Frank Castle. That's not the Punisher.
I mean, the hide in an alley part, sure, but he's going to stand in your face before he pulls the trigger. It's not going to be a hit and run.
Yeah, someone's getting their ass kicked soon.
But absolutely. So I mean, it's like I said, you're obviously meant to assume that. I think it was an amazing performance by White Tiger throughout the course of that episode. It's like we said, last week. It's sad that he didn't get a chance to see the reaction to his performance, and the reaction to the character. But it's that episode was top to bottom. I loved it, because it played on the elements of Daredevil that I like the most. The duality of Matt Murdock and the Daredevil, and that's something we didn't get as much in later seasons of the show. Originally, you got more Punisher or more Daredevil and less Matt Murdock. At least Matt Murdock, avocado at law. And I loved seeing it. I loved seeing the courtroom performance. The way that you could feel him ramping up during it and having it fall apart for him to salvage it, to make it right. I loved it. I loved every part of that episode. Everybody's performance was just
Love
freaking
the
amazing.
I sent you the gif of it, I think. The commenting about the black eye.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
you did send that. Exactly. I love that part, and all of that and playing that. It was great. It was a great episode, and nobody really got short shrift. Even Fisk, who is less in the episode than other episodes, still very prominent. You know, I am loving James Gandolfini's performance in this as well, which is not something I expected. But I would have loved. If there's one thing I regret is not having the opportunity to see his father perform opposite Vincent D'Onofrio. But that's something else for another day. But it's I'm loving it. The way he's sort of
He's a good
playing
number
that.
two.
Yeah, like the way he's playing that character, I'm enjoying because I can see it. And the same obviously with Fisk. He's essentially playing both sides against the middle, and I love it. And it's a balancing act that I'm looking forward to see fall like the House of Cards it is, because it's going to be amazing and it's going to be epic, and I can't wait to see it.
So
Randy, go ahead.
I definitely agree. This was a great episode. The courtroom stuff, it was absolutely amazing. Just the emotions in general from everybody, the performances, the dialogue, just overall, it was great. I found it interesting. Like, we're seeing glimpses of uh, I was at this point cops who have bought into the Punisher's brand of justice, because we're seeing Punisher tattoos everywhere, and that's why, you know, like you, Johnny, I don't think that was Frank at the end, just because, even though, yeah, it was plain as day Punisher, emblem on the armor, that doesn't mean that it was Frank. Frank's too much of a in your face kind of guy for that sort of thing. It's interesting. In a few short episodes, my wife got into White Tiger, the character, um, just the way he was portrayed and everything, and she was heartbroken at the end of the episode watching him die. She's like, "I don't like this show, but I love this show." It's kind of, it gives you an idea of just how well these characters are developing in such a short amount of time. They're so well written and so well acted. There was there's one shot that they did where they showed one of the buildings kind of out of focus in that little puddle of water, and then when they zoomed in and focused on that, I was like, that is absolutely gorgeous. I was blown away by that. Um, but I see where they're going, trying to do with the series. I see how they used Foggy to get Matt to hang up, the mask, and now how they're trying to push him back to the point of where he's going to don the mask again. And I can't wait for it, because we've already seen the struggle that Matt's had with being Daredevil versus not being Daredevil. And obviously, as we know, since Fisk is all about not having vigilantes on his street, the fact that he knows that Matt's the one who freed that vigilante, we know that something's going to be brewing, and those two are going to come to blows at some point again. And I am all here for that. They've done so well of just kind of laying the foundation so far, and I can't wait to see what they build, because it's so far. I'm just I can't. I want to go and watch the episode tonight, right after we're done, just because I'm that invested in seeing where things go.
Yeah, we just finished rewatching The Punisher season 2, and so it has us, biting at the bullet here to get Frank into the show. So looking forward to whenever he does come up. I the courtroom stuff was fantastic. I agree with Johnny. I think the later seasons of Daredevil kind of got away from that for a bit, and I think that was honestly something that was definitely missing from the show. And I thoroughly enjoyed every second of it. Um, clear as day, not Frank Castle at the end, but we'll see how it all plays out. But yes, Daredevil Born Again, episode 4 is up and live as we speak. So be on the lookout for that. This just dropped today, not in our show notes, but I'm pretty excited for it. And that is the re-release of Shadows of the Empire. Fantastic cover artwork. We get Luke, obviously, with Boba and Dash Rendar. Prince Shizor's up there with Vader, the Falcon. Um, Shadows of the Empire is such a pivotal point in just Star Wars media creation. Johnny and I did a thing with our buddy Mondo many years ago on Star Wars Wastelands on this, where it's like it was the movie, it was the size of the marketing campaign was basically what they do for a movie, but without a movie. They had the comic line, they had the book, they had the game. They did not all tell the same story. Um, and, a lot of people honestly were not thrilled with obviously what happened with the Phantom Menace, even though I love that movie. And I think people were thinking they were still going to get something closer to in line with, what Shadows of the Empire was, and have that, gritty Empire type feeling to it, which was probably an unrealistic expectation for people to go in with. But when your last two big games before Phantom Menace are Shadows of the Empire and Rogue Squadron, what do you expect people to think? Um, but yeah, I'm excited about this. I think the cover art looks great. And to go with it is a brand new unabridged version of the audiobook for this. They've recorded, the whole book over again, nothing cut out, so you get it at its full length. As I always say with the Star Wars audiobooks, it's like watching a movie blindfolded. So only you get way more story. So I'm really excited for this because I've never had access to a decent audiobook for Shadows of the Empire. Um, I've read that book actually front to back many years ago. Actually, I think Johnny and I were in school together. So looking forward to that. That was unexpected. And staying with Star Wars, fellas, it came out this week that not only is Star Wars Eclipse still in development, and they're getting ready to shoot some video for the game as early as this week, but that the Knights of the Old Republic remake, whatever it's going to end up being titled, is still in development. Saber came out and squashed any rumors about it being canceled or delayed, and said in terms of where their projections are, they're on pace and very much still in development. And you're not going to see either of these titles soon, but I'm still very much in the category of I'll believe we're getting it once we get it. Where do you guys fall with this?
Development hell is still development. Um, I think that's where it is. It's stuck in a state of chaotic crafting and chaotic development. You know, Saber is also going through its own, you know, kettle of fish right now. You know, financially. So like, I still take everything they say with a huge grain of salt. Um, an unhealthy amount of salt. Even I just, you know, I still personally, as a fan, have not forgiven Saber for ruining Saints Row. Um, so I really, you know, it's it's a meh for me. You know, if it ever comes out, we'll see what it's like, and then I'll make a decision on whether or not I care about it based on that. Because, you know, I still have the classic versions of this game. You know, it's installed on my Xbox and it's installed on my PC. You know, like, I'm good. I thought they got it right the first time. I don't, you know, I don't so much care about remakes where they're going to potentially change the story, you know, and I don't like that idea at all. So if they,
Almost a
I'll say
guarantee with
this,
this one.
and it is, and if they change the story in a way that I don't like, I will not play it. Like, there are certain parts of that, so like I understand changing, like I understand sort of unifying certain parts of the story to make a canon direction. I can tolerate that as long as those changes come from within the original script. You know, like I don't care if you change the outcomes of certain things so long as they are outcomes that were doable in the original. You know, I don't want such massive changes to the story that it's, you know, an entirely different thing from the original game. So if you want to remake it for like modern mechanics, you know, modern graphics, things of that nature, and you want to sort of unify the story so that, you know, the outcomes are more linear, I'm okay with that as long as it's still the story we got 20 years ago at its core.
The really sad thing here is, and I stand by this, Knights of the Old Republic is the greatest Star Wars story ever told. That includes episodes of TV, animated series, the movies, etc. In terms of character development, story payoff, um, there's never been a better Star Wars story. And Drew Carpathian and his team deserve more credit than they get for the work that they put on into that game, into that story. How many layers it had, um, and yet you have the easiest layup in the world, dude. We've been talking about this in Star Wars Wastelands days. Easiest layup in the world
Mm-hmm.
in terms of getting a win. And instead, you let it get into development hell. And it's been another project that, no matter how excited I am to finally play it one day, if it ever happens, um, never ever should have happened like this. This should never have happened with this title. Like, it's a gimme, and they fumbled it like they do a lot of other things. Randy, you got any positivity for us, or
So,
you dunk on them?
Johnny, at least Sabre came out and apologized for Saints Row, saying they just didn't understand Saints Row. So that's why it was as bad as it was. They didn't understand the property, and that's how they got it. That's how they got it wrong. It's the same thing with. There's a lot of stuff. If you don't understand the essence of what you're working on, especially if you're working on a remake, reboot, whatever, it's going to suffer. I will say, if you think about it, developmental hell isn't the end of the world. I mean, Dead Island 2 took how long to come out? And
Oh, don't that you're not helping your case, Randy.
it's actually a better game than the
No,
first
it's
one.
not. It's garbage.
Considering how hard it is to please you with just about anything, I'm not
It's not
surprised that
better
you're.
than the first game. The first game was great, and then the second game happened. They should have just stopped. Riptide is a better game than Dead Island 2.
I mean, I liked Riptide, but I've enjoyed the hell out of Dead
It's
Island too. So
I'm not saying it's fundamentally bad. I'm saying it's a bad Dead Island game.
Okay, I mean that's probably like saying Dying Light 2 is not a good Dying Light game, but
Well, no, I think that one's better. That I prefer 2 to 1. I think they improved on this
A-
one.
anyway, I think the problem here is, and you guys are right, it's a layup. This is an easy win for Star Wars gaming in general. I think the problem here is that too many people had their say, and they're trying to pull it in too many different directions, rather than just focus on, hey, let's get some top-notch voice actors. Let's make sure that the graphics are crisp and clean. That we only tweak some storylines if we feel it's necessary. I mean, it's just like if you look at the Final Fantasy remake and then Rebirth, the voice acting is top notch. I mean, Rebirth was an amazing game this past year. Uh, it's a remake done right. It's a and I wouldn't even to some degrees I wouldn't even call it a remake. It's just more of a reboot. But that's just me. But like, I get they're probably trying to. I'm assuming they're just trying to fight over mechanics and things like that, and that's just dumb. Keep there's certain things. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I think that's where the problem was, is that you had too many hands in there trying to say this is the direction we should go, and that's why it's taken so long. And of course, Saber having their own issues, and it's. I still think it's going to get done. I think it's just going to take a little bit longer than anybody really wanted it to take. Am I still going to play it day one? Yes. Why? Because I love Star Wars, and I know that if it's at least even half as good, 3/4 as good as the original, I'm fine with it. If it's because I don't see it being better. You're not gonna make it better. We've seen this already with Star Wars, with the Force Awakens versus A New Hope, because that's basically what they really were. So I just want something good. I want something there where they don't fuck it up, and they at least stay true to the feel of Knights of the Old Republic. If I go in playing this game when it finally releases, we'll say within the next 5 years, I will, and I feel like I'm playing KOTOR, thumbs up, because honestly, that's kind of where it really needs to be at this point. It's a feeling. How it makes you feel, and if you can get good music, good controls, good voice acting, and the storyline is just about right on par with almost the exact same storyline you get, even if there's some minor tweaks, then we're good. But it also depends on everybody getting on the same page and saying, this is what we need to do. No outside interference from anybody. This is what we have. This is what needs to be done. And this is what we're going to do moving forward. And that's really kind of what we really need. And I am confident that we're going to get that. It may not be the original KOTOR, but at least it's going to be something decent. And that's kind of what I'm hoping for.
All right, let's shift gears here, guys. I'm going to step away for a bit and help out with a little one. Johnny, take this away. WWE 2K25. Your thoughts? We do got to be out of here in 25 minutes, so maybe keep a timer fresh for that. And for those of you that are just joining, feel free to join us for our Andor Season 1, Episode 6 watch party. Pretty massive episode in that series. And we'll be doing that. It'll probably be more like 10:15 by the time we're live over there, 10:15, 10:20. But join us over there for that episode. And yeah, Johnny, take it away.
Well, like I said, I've played it a couple times on Twitch, but I've played it a lot more offline than I have online. Um, I've been enjoying the hell out of it. It is, for me, it is the best WWE 2K game. Period. It is probably the best WWE game in a very long time. I feel like they've sort of finally reached that balance between being a true to form wrestling sort of simulation game and being a fun sort of arcade experience. And I think they've balanced that quite nicely this year. Um, I Randy, have you played it?
Not yet. It's
No.
definitely something I was kind of waiting on the reviews for, just because we have been burned in the past by the
Mhm.
2K games, whether it's unfinished or just glitches or just stuff just didn't feel right.
Mhm.
Like the last real WWE games that I played a lot of was the Raw versus SmackDown series. Like, to
Yeah.
me, that was peak. So I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to a new game.
They were definitely amazing. I mean, uh, but for me, I have, like I said, I have had the experience playing this, and I've played it a lot. I easily have double-digit hours into it already, and it's only been out for you know a week and a half. Um, I'm enjoying it a great deal. Like I said, it strikes that balance between simulation and arcade in a great way that I enjoy. I feel like the content in it is great. The roster is the best it's been, but that's the nature of a continually growing roster with technology that allows you to have a roster that's 200 guys deep when we used to be lucky to get 24. And it's a like I said, it's an amazing roster. It has some great new legends, and I know obviously it's heavily bloodline focused because they come from the showcase, but having them in the game I think is a great thing. Just expanding upon that history element, and showdown itself was great. Going through the history of the bloodline and changing certain matches that historically you look back on and go, it could have gone the other way, but having those things and loving it, I love. But most importantly, you had Paul's performance in the introduction videos, which is, I mean, it's Paul Heyman. He is freaking amazing at what he does, and he does a damn good job. I said it last week that his introduction for the Roman Seth Royal Rumble 22 match is more enthralling to me. It hyped me more for a match between those two that happened 2 years ago than likely anything they're going to do in the build up to WrestleMania this year. It was that good. Um, it definitely does not leave you wanting with the showcase. It's fun, even up through the sort of gauntlet thing at the end where you run through the gauntlet, run through the bloodline with the bloodline. It was fun. Um, Even my faction, which typically is just a huge money sink, where if you don't spend money, you're not going to get the experience out of it that's good. But insofar as things are so far, as long as they continue sort of adding content to it, like different world tourist things, which is sort of one of the big focuses this year, as long as they continue adding to those routinely, I think there's a lot of great content in that. They've done a better job working the the cost value. Being able to buy cards and packs in the market is easier without spending a lot of money. You know, I've I haven't I haven't spent any real money. I haven't even spent any of the currency I got for pre-ordering yet, and still I feel like I've pulled and opened easily dozen, 2 dozen packs in that mode, which is something I couldn't have said for last year. Um, the card market is better this year with more reasonable prices in that, so you can grind out to be able to buy cards from the market that you want. The only critiques that I have that like where they change something that I go, I really wish you hadn't changed that, is some of the changes they've made to my GM. Um, I'm happy they've added online functionality to it, so you can play with friends. Um, in that regard, but I don't particularly like the new PLE format. Adding basically now your go home TV is what your premium live event was before. I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of the changes to the premium live event with the brand versus brand matches because they are random. Even if you put in a better opponent, the game can just decide, well, you know what? It's not your day. and you lose, and it puts you in a hole that is very hard to dig your way out of from the fans and financial standpoint because of the bonuses involved in that. I routinely have been playing. I started one on Twitch, but I was playing one offline just to sort of play through and get used to how the mechanics worked long term, so that I wasn't doing it on stream and flailing and looking like an idiot. And after the first month, I was losing because of the pay per view and nothing else. I outperformed them on a week to week basis leading into it. My go home show was better. The only week they did better than me was the first week because they ran a charity promo thing that increases your fans at the end of the episode.
Yeah.
They did one of those, which gave them a few thousand fans more than I had coming out of it. But quality wise, my show was better. Fan wise, mine was better. But because they ran that promo, that they edged out slightly. But it was the pay per view where things went to hell in a handbasket. I was leading by close to 10,000 fans after the go home show. After the pay per view, I was losing by twice that many.
Wow.
And it wasn't because my content was worse. My matches were better on the PLE, on the pay per view premium live events. Now at least this instance, it was King and Queen of the Ring. So you booked a women's singles match, one woman from your brand, one woman from the other brand, and you did a 4-way main event where 2 from your brand, 2 from their brand. And I lost both the women's and the men's match, despite having, in my opinion, better talent, higher popularity, better stamina. All of the things should have said I win, but lost both of those matches. My 2 mid-card matches to their 2 mid-card matches outperformed them by a star in each match. And still, I was losing by 20,000 fans after that because I lost those 2 matches and the boosts involved in them. It's too stilted in that regard for randomness. So I think that's something that should be tweaked a little bit. I don't know if it's something like that's the thing about this. I don't want to play those matches because I feel like that's cheating. Like I'm going to beat the AI 98% of the time, even in legend difficulty. And I don't want to play those matches because that just feels too cheap. So I simulate them, as you do when you play GM mode. You don't play the matches. You might watch them, you might spectate them, but you don't play them.
Right.
And because you like the randomness. I feel like you have to play those matches or you are going to lose. And I don't like that. Like if I'm playing with friends, like if you were me or me and Sean were playing in GM mode, then sure, play those matches. Because you're playing against another human. There's no guaranteed victory no matter who you put out there. It comes down to your skill versus their skill, your luck versus their luck. It's a fair, even playing field. But other than that, I'm enjoying it a great deal. I haven't started My Rise yet, but I hear nothing but great things. I've watched some videos, I've seen some other people playing it, and I've seen nothing but great things. That's the next thing I want to start doing. I've played a bit of the island. Obviously, it's a new mode. There's kinks that need to be worked out. But you expected that. At least I did. It's the start of something that has potential. It's fun, seeing all of the different players simultaneously occupying the same world is fun. I enjoy that. So there's obviously there's potential there. Once they get the servers fully ironed out, like opening night had issues with the server and the loading, but it's launch night. You expect that. Anyone who didn't expect that is a crazy. Like any game that has a multiplayer element like that, you expect the servers to be bad on night 1, but overall, I think it's a great game. I'm loving it. I'm enjoying it a great deal. Which is more than I can say for years past. I'd go through the showcase. I'd go through, maybe play some faction stuff until it got boring or until it got, until the curve became too steep that I couldn't keep up. Even the hard things get bad. I will say I hate the new submission mechanic. I hate it. I think it's stupid. So I turned it off immediately. And went back to the old one, the button mashing mechanic, because that's at least more in my control, or more equal,
Yeah, so I'm assuming like the My Rise is the career mode
Mhm,
essentially. Because it's been a while since I've played a 2K game.
mhm,
That was always the thing for me with any wrestling game was creating my own wrestler and taking him from the bottom all the way to the top and
mhm,
getting to enjoy some of the storylines. But I always found in some of the 2K games leading up to I'm trying to think the last one I played. Hate to say it was, but it was the one with Lesnar on the cover, and I can't remember the name, the what year that was. But it's just the promos and just a lot of the story stuff just didn't hit click with me, which is why I stopped playing because I always felt like with the Raw versus SmackDown games, uh, the storylines, even though yes, it was pulled right from stuff they did, I still had a lot more fun with that. So I'm kind of hoping that when you get into the My Rise for 25, that it's solid just because that's a big that for me that's what sells me on it. I'm not huge on a lot of the other stuff, but the whole idea of the career mode and creating your own wrestler and giving them a move set and training them up and have and built working them to the point of where they get to the point of being a champion. That's how you get me in a wrestling game. So you'll have to keep me posted on that because I'm really curious to know how much more improved it is from what they've done in the past.
Well, it's definitely, self hype time, but it's definitely something I'm going to be doing on stream in the next week or two. So, I'll let you know when I do that, and you can check it out for
Cool.
yourself. Um, but no, it's been a great game so far. I'm enjoying the experience. I'm having fun playing it, and that's something that can't always be said. Sometimes those games become grindy, and you stop having fun even on the higher difficulties. Like there were, if you watch the stream, there were matches that I was having trouble winning, even on lower difficulties, because of the way things, of the mechanics and the way things are, and that sort of stuff. Like I am enjoying that. I like the challenge. I like the World Tour is one mode that has definitely been fun for me. That I wish I'd have done more of on stream because of some of the challenges in it. You know, um, and the grinding for different persona cards is, I think, a good thing for me. It's giving me characters that aren't easily unlockable to the generic public. You actually have to work for them. So like getting them is, I think, fun for me. So if you're just playing in that, like if you're just playing outside of that, but they're hard. Not just from a stance of difficult matches and stilted in the computer's favor, which does make it more fun. I like the AI having that edge, but there's different things that are more fun. Like there was one set of challenges that was, when I was trying to grind out to get the 2010 version of CM Punk, and you would have a war games match, but I couldn't pick my own team. It would pick 4 cards from within my collection, and you kind of had to hope you'd get a good team. So it took me a while to get that because you get you get a lot more stinker cards than you do great cards. So getting a good card somewhere in there and hoping that you can get the pin before the AI gets it was fun. Even losing, I lost that match easily a dozen times. Because there was more than one of them, but it was still fun because each one was random. I wasn't able to put in my heavy hitters every round and be guaranteed to walk away with the result in one match. I think a big change for me that I personally enjoy that it seems like other people aren't is the new ladder match mechanic. They've completely changed that from where it used to be. You would sort of chase the dot and try and get it into the hole.
Hmm.
Now it is entirely based on button prompt. You have a roaming stage. First one is like 5 buttons, and it's obviously all face buttons. And then you do it again, and then you do it again, and then you do it again, trying to get it down. It's both easier and harder because one miss button press and it's over. You have to start over.
I mean, I
I
think
find it easier.
I think QTEs are fine with something like that.
Yeah.
I remember when you used to literally have to you used to use the sticks to climb up the ladder and then
Mm.
like have to hold it just right to
Yeah.
like pull the belt or the briefcase off the thing, and that was not fun.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I enjoy that the new QT for the ladder match. I think it's more fun. It's more forgiving. It's easier to win the big multi-man matches, which used to be a tedious grind of hell. I have won like that's one of the showcase matches that people were complaining about. You have to redo the I think it would have been the first women's Money in the Bank match. I think um, where you win it with Naomi, where you have to win it with Naomi, which wasn't the the actual result. But it's one of
Mhm.
those change history ones. I was able to do it first try. Which in a ladder match is not easy to do. You know, I've lost more ladder matches than I've won because multi-man ladder matches because you can't control the opponents. You can't control
Right.
you can't control everyone in the ring at the same time. But I won it first try relatively easily. You can obviously cheese it. You can try and run it up there as fast as you can and get it down as fast as you can. But it's fun for me. I enjoy that. I like that now. In games past where you knock the ladder up from under and they just dangle there and just wait until either they fell or you power bomb
Mhm.
them off. Well, now that's not the case anymore. Now if you get to each stage is sort of a hand on the briefcase in the QTE. So like you grab at it and then you get your hand on it and you sort of swat at it and get the second hand on it. Once you have both hands on it, if the ladder is knocked down from underneath you while you have both hands on the briefcase, you still maintain that point of contact. So you can still win the match from that point because you have both. So you still have your next wheel. So your opponents still have to get you down. If they don't pull you down fast enough, you can still win, even if they knock the ladder from underneath you, which is, I think, one of the greatest changes they've made to the match in forever. You know?
Yeah, that's definitely that's a nice addition for sure. Just because I just like you said, games past, it's usually 9 times out of 10 you're falling. You're falling. There's just no way you're going to hold on. So that's good. That's a nice change. I did see some of the new stack up thing that they have in the corner. I saw a video where it had like The Rock stacking Yokozuna and Andre the Giant up on his shoulders and do. I'm going really. So I guess is gone the days of, well, you have to be a super heavyweight to be able to do certain things to super heavyweights, or do they still give you?
Oh no, you still get that.
Okay,
But it's mostly the giant class that has those things in it now.
okay,
I think if you're within, for the most part, like a couple weight classes, like so you still get moments where it's like I should not be physically able to do this, but stamina plays a factor, damage plays a factor, which is all good, obviously. But finishers like that, yeah, you can just kind of do them, you know. But you still have those moments where you go to grab the giant or something, and it just you sort of get brushed off. And in some instances, you're like, wait a minute, what? Like, there are instances I've seen where the Undertaker tries to grapple Kane and gets the brush off "You can't lift me" animation. Like, no,
hmm.
that's not a thing. That should not be a thing.
No, I agree. I mean,
But
and it could be a stamina thing where he's just not
mhm,
weakened enough. So to a degree, it can make sense, but I wouldn't think that'd be something that'd be easily done anyway. So
yeah, I mean, I'd say they've definitely got more right than they've got wrong this year. Which for me I think is a big deal. I like the addition of the NXT parking lot as a battleground.
well, that's cool.
I like the addition of the archives as a battleground, and by that I mean the WWE archives. So you can you have like the old WrestleMania signs in the background. You have the SmackDown fist. You can grab on stuff like it's fun place. I like the new addition to match types. Having the underground match I think is fun. It allows an entirely new element of gameplay. Um, I think, like I said, I think they've got more right than they've got wrong. And as long as they can sort of maintain that and don't wreck anything on balance and update in future updates, I think they've got great potential for this to be one of the greatest wrestling games of all time. Be in that category with the No Mercies and the and the NWO WCW Revenges. To
Mm-hmm.
be in the conversation with those type of games with your Here Comes the Pain and those types of games, and be in that conversation legitimately. I think this year's DLC class is, for the most part, one of the better ones. I definitely have my issues with some of them. I don't like the addition of celebrities to them that have nothing to do with wrestling. I specifically don't like 3 NBA players in one of the updates. I think that's ridiculous. I don't want NBA players in my WWE game. That's simple. I'm never going to use them. Never. Like it's really no different than the Pat McAfee pack last year, which was Pat and friends. Like, sure, it was funny for a minute, but I was, I never played as Boston Rob. Like I, I think those are stupid, and for the most part are going to go relatively unused. Like the rumors are, celebrities is you're gonna have Travis Scott and KSI, and I think I Show Speed. I think are the 3 celebrities that are supposed to be in it. I was like, I don't give a rat's ass about them. I'm not gonna be them.
Who says you have to be them? But just throw them in a ring and beat the shit out of them.
Yeah, but even that, like I said, it'll be fun for a minute, but
It's a
that's it.
novelty and it wears off.
Yeah, like I would much rather them have other actual wrestlers in there, but it is what it
Well,
is in that
I mean,
regard.
at some point, you're going to get, Ray Phoenix and get, Malachi Black and, Jeff Cobb since he just signed. So, you're going to get those guys coming in at some point in the DLC. So,
Unless they add to it, no, we're not. Which they haven't done to this point any years past. Once they put out that list, that's it. There's never been any late ads
that's
in
a
that
shame.
regard, just because of the time it takes, to get them modeled and programmed and put in the game is not an easy thing to do. So it is what it is. I understand that, but even still, you still have, I think, some of the most diverse parts for a DLC in history. I mean, there was no universe where I had Abyss on my bucket list for this
Right.
game. You know, to the point where when I saw the list, I had to double check multiple sources to be like, New Jack, ECW New Jack is on this list. What? Like, excuse me? What? Huh? I still don't believe that. Like it's just it. But I love it for that because it's so out there that it's like New Jack is going to be in this freaking game. Abyss is going to be in this game. Like,
Yeah.
they're names that I never would have predicted being in this game, and it just I love it. I love the idea of it. I'm excited for it.
I mean, they're legends in their own right, and without their contributions to wrestling, we wouldn't be where the product is. It's so there's certain things they've added to wrestling that is pretty prevalent now, whether it's WWE or AEW. Their contributions are definitely shown, and I think it's great that Abyss does put some of the matches together for WWE since he's in the backstage there. So it's cool that he's going to get a shot to actually have his character out there for everybody to use.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely going to be fun for me. I'm excited for that one. Yeah.
So out of we'll keep it simple in terms of rating. Out of a 10, what do you give it so far? Just no update, no real updates yet, no craziness because there's going to be updates. There's going to be little additions here and there that are going to, and stuff they're going to tweak, or maybe they'll even nerf some stuff. You never know. Where do you rate it on a scale of 10?
Right now, I'm sitting at a solid 8.5.
That's
Maybe
good.
even 9. It's that good. Um, like I said, it has the potential to be in the conversation with the best games ever. But they still need to execute everything they have coming down the pipeline, right? And that's going to be a big question. Can they do it? Will they do it? And will they find a way to fuck it up in updates down the road?
Yeah, that's always the burden of any developer, making sure that the DLC is just as top notch as what they when they released the original game. I mean, obviously we know not every wrestling game has come out has been pristine, and that has
Mhm.
taken a lot of updating, a lot of patching to get right. But everything I've seen, and then of course, from what you've played, what you've said, so it really sounds like they put their best foot forward this time, and have really given us something good to work with and play with for at least a year until they try to shove the new one down our throats.
Yeah, it absolutely has. I've enjoyed it a great deal. Or I'm looking back in the chat there. We sort of missed this in the past there. Jerry sent in a super chat, $10. I love seeing this promo on Monday. Don't like Rock being a focal point. He will be. Just wait. Cody versus Cena, the heel turn is the hottest thing going now. No Rock needed in this storyline. Um, I mean, I agree and disagree. I think you sort of needed the catalyst of the Rock to make that turn. Um, I don't know so much that it was at the correct time. I still think that was better saved for WrestleMania. Um, but we'll have to wait and see, where they go. Like I said earlier, I was not a fan of Cena's promo. I just felt it was just too, like the memes going into it were just, John Cena's now fuck them kids. John Cena's promo was fuck them kids. Like it wasn't when everybody on the internet can figure out the promo before the promo actually happens. You
I felt,
didn't do good. You
yeah,
just did what we expected.
I felt like it was too generic for me.
Yeah.
It just that I feel like if Cena's going to burn his bridges, he should have just burnt them to the ground. He should have just
Mhm.
pulled out the Doctor of Thugonomics and went at it, but he didn't, and that bummed me out a little bit. I wanted the fire. I wanted Cena to just go all
Mhm.
out, burning bridges, and he didn't, and
Yeah,
that's why I was
it's
disappointed.
it's sort of like they've half done it, half not done it, so that when they inevitably turn him face for
Yeah.
the back end of the run, that people will be like, "Oh, when he was, he was just playing," Like, no, I don't want that. I want a genuine redemption arc of you being wrong, you fucking up, and realizing it in the end. But I digress. But all right, we are going to bring everything to a close now. Um, we have the watch party here in about 15 minutes or so. We will be back here. Link is in the chat right here. Sean still stepped away. He's doing producer stuff, but he's not, back here actually with us. So we will thank you on his behalf and end the show. So, um, Randy, always as usual, pleasure. It's always fun. It's always great. Even when we disagree, it's still fun. That's the best part of doing
I
this
agree.
sort of thing is that we can argue and we can disagree, but shake hands at the end of it and be happy and satisfied that
What fun would it be if we always agreed on everything?
exactly, exactly. So Randy, where can everybody find you?
So on X, it's at Giggity Giles. Trying to be a little bit better with posting. Haven't posted as much lately. Uh, Taking a small break with the Sports Brew, but with March Madness gearing up, I'm pretty sure you will be hearing from us really soon. So if you are into people just getting drunk, acting stupid, and talking sports, just go Sports Brew in the Googles, and you should be able to find us no problem.
And so there you go. Now hit us up all the socials you see up top. Um, believe the Patreon's still Patreon slash Fandom Empire. I think it's until the first of the month. He said first of April, I believe, is when it'll change to the link that's above here. Twitter, X, Fandom Nation, and Fandom Nation on Facebook. Me, as always, you can find me here, there, and everywhere. Twitch.tv/bros before pros. We'll be live again over there on Thursday night is the plan right now. But who knows? Maybe I'll even hop on, play something after we're done with the Andor watch party. Who knows? We'll see how I'm feeling, and we'll go from there. But Thursday night for sure, we'll be back on playing something. I don't know what, but something. So for Sean, for Randy, for myself, for all of our patrons over on patreon.com, all of our producers, everybody who helps us however they can, we appreciate you. We love you. For everyone watching, we appreciate you. We love you for watching live. Thanks for spending your time with us. If you're watching us later, give us a like, thumbs up, subscribe, click notification bell, subscribe, all notifications on, all that fun stuff that helps us propel ourselves up your page so that you will always know where we are and when we're at. We thank you. We appreciate you. We love you. We'll see you if you're joining us for Andor in about 15 minutes. If you're not, we'll see you next week